On the theme of exercise, I'm going to kind of include it, but I'm going to keep the promise that I made to you last month. Last month, we talked about the germ theory. And if you remember, we kind of ended saying germs don't cause disease. Disease basically is what forces germs. And so then the question arises, so what causes diseases? And so that's when I promised. I said, well, there are 10 underlying causes for all diseases. And so I said, that's what I'll cover the next time. So I'll do that. But in the spirit of exercise, I'm going to offer you a riddle. Don't answer quite yet in the chat. If you know the answer, save it until I said, now you can put your answer in. The riddle is this. What is the most powerful exercise? If you practice it, the more you practice it, the greater opportunity you have to add 15 to 30 productive years to your life. So it's a very powerful exercise. You have to practice it. And because of the compromise in diet and lifestyle and air pollution and the soil is polluted, of course, we can't get the nutrition that we used to have from the beginning of time. So there are two powerful supplements that you would need to help you to practice this exercise. And so this is the two-part exercise riddle. What is that most powerful practice that you can do? And what are those two most powerful supplements known to man? Don't put the answers in yet. I'll tell you when. So I'm going to share my screen now. And what I want to talk about is these 10 underlying causes. Now, because of time, I want to make sure that I hit the key salient points. But I want to spend, and I'm going to be watching the clock, I want to spend no more than 35 to 40 minutes covering those. So I'll cover as much as I can. I'll hit on all of them. But as I'm watching the clock, there's a couple of key ones that I want to focus on. And then if there's any questions, if there's time at the end, you can ask any of your questions, and then we'll handle those questions at that time. And then, as Seth indicated, you can put in your Ask the Doctor, and they pick a person every Friday, and perhaps we'll do a little bit extra there. But I'm going to share my screen now, and hopefully you can see this. Somebody nod, wave a hand. Can everybody?
Yeah, we see it.
Okay, good. So we're going to talk about the 10 underlying causes of all diseases, and in this process, we're going to compare allopathy versus original medicine. Allopathy is another term for conventional medicine. That's the modern medicine that we're all familiar with. And original medicine is the term I use for the brand of naturopathy, naturopathic medicine versus allopathic medicine that you're all familiar with, especially those of you who are part of the school. So with that, we're going to talk about the 10 underlying causes. But what we want to focus on, is there a real need for either of these systems? And so, and in the context of that, we're going to talk about the strengths and weaknesses, or you'll be able to discern that. But there's one key strength that allopathy has that no other system has. So I want to focus on that as well. So this isn't to badmouth either or system, but it's basically to give you an appreciation for these 10 underlying causes by looking at a natural approach or original medicine versus the allopathic approach. And then, as I said, we're going to look at, and this is a part of original medicine, the two most powerful supplements known to man. If you remember when we talked about the germ theory, we talked about what disease is. So from the allopathic standpoint, disease is an abnormal condition of the organism which interrupts the normal bodily functions that often leads to feelings of pain and weakness, and usually associated with signs and symptoms. That's the key. Allopathic medicine is focused on signs and symptoms. From the original medicine standpoint, disease is an effort of nature to free the system from the conditions that result from a violation of the laws of health. So one is signs and symptoms, the other one is laws of health. So with that, let us look at, first of all, let's agree with what original medicine is. Everybody knows what allopathic medicine is, and we're going to look at some of the key things that are involved as you look at these underlying causes. But original medicine, the three major focus points is that original medicine draws its knowledge and power from the original author and creator of both the moral and the natural laws. We said that disease from an original medicine standpoint is a violation of the laws of health. The author and creator is that original knowledge giver. And then there's a powerful set of these time-honored principles and techniques for developing the whole person, body, mind, and spirit. And so from an original medicine standpoint, you want to seek first the knowledge of the original knowledge giver of all of these systems for the most enabling and empowering road to health and vitality. Now, many of you might not realize this, but in medical school, all students have to take this course called the Gowans Diagnostic Examination. If you ever have trouble sleeping, you get this book. It's very small print, it's very thick, and it has all the diagnostics that they go through in analyzing all kinds of disease processes. On the right, the book that we have, we don't have the Gowans Diagnostics in our program, but in our degree programs, we have a course called Medical Language. And basically, it covers the same thing, and they cover these 10 categories of disease. So all of you who are part of our doctoral and our PhD program, you're going to be very familiar with these 10 courses. And those that are studying original medicine, you'll understand very well all of these different things that we're talking about. That's what we go through. How do you become an expert in original medicine? Okay, here's the 10 categories. Now we're going to go through them one at a time. So let's do that, and let's start off with first infections. Now with infections, in general and in summary, this is the allopathic approach. It's a very good one. They want to cleanse and dress it. They use antibiotics, antiseptics, and drugs based on types. And in some cases of gangrene, advanced gangrene, etc., they actually even use surgery. They have to cut out the organ or cut out the limb or whatever that seriously infected part of the body is. Now, from an original medicine standpoint, of course, there's also non-drug cleansing where appropriate, but the focus from an original medicine standpoint is not so much on antibiotics, antiseptics, and drugs. It's on a cleansing diet and or fasting. And as I mentioned earlier, those of you who are part of our program will learn a lot about what that cleansing diet is, what those fasting is, to be able to address infection from this original medicine standpoint. But there are some very, very powerful herbs that are available that are natural antibiotics that are just as effective and sometimes even more effective than the drugs and antiseptics, but with no side effects. And so because of the season that we're in, I used the example of the antiviral flu shot. And these are very, very powerful remedies for either preventing or reversing coronavirus or other viral issues, no matter what they are, or bacterial issues. So remember back when we talked about the germ theory, if you don't want to have these germs, this is a way to prevent them from happening. And if you have them, these are the kind of things that you use for either viral and or bacterial approaches. Now, each one of these, you can spend 10 to 20 minutes on talking about the power of them. But again, as I said earlier, I just wanted to give you a feel for the power of original medicine and to give you an idea of what those modalities are. Now, for parasite elimination, the same thing. Black walnut hulls, quassia, wormwood, a lot of these different types of very powerful herbs. And a lot of you might even be familiar with castor oil. Might not taste too good, but you take a tablespoon of castor oil and it'll get rid of worms and parasites and give you a good thorough cleaning. And for COVID-19, for example, this original medicine, antiviral, antiparasitic, and these antibiotics are a very, very powerful way of addressing any kinds of infections, primary or secondary infections due to that. We spent much time going through this, so this is kind of a summary. So let's look at the second underlying cause. So we talked about infection. The second one is inflammation. And from an inflammation standpoint, again, the allopathic treatment is primarily steroidal and non-steroidal agents. The anti-inflammatories, you're very familiar with that. And again, in advanced cases, surgery is involved. From an original medicine standpoint, you want to identify what are the laws that are broken, what are the causes and contributing factors, and they are over 95% of the time dietary and lifestyle factors. And so by making the appropriate modifications, you can address that inflammation using original medicine. And then again, for natural prednisone, prednisone being one of the more popular anti-inflammatories, there are a whole host of original medicine approaches, from garlic and oregano oil all the way down to poultices, compresses, and a whole host of other herbs. The third is malignancy. Now I'm going to park on this for about a minute or two because this is one that a lot of people are afraid of, and this is what causes a lot of angst. So malignancy is, of course, cancer and cancer-related kinds of items. And the allopathic approach is pure and simple: chemo, radiation, surgery, biopsy. That is the total, the sum and substance of all of the approaches from an allopathic standpoint, with all of the various approaches for managing and applying it. Now, there is an original medicine: chemo, radiation, surgery, and biopsy. And that's what I want to spend a little bit of time on. You know, a lot of people say, well, infection, they're not too concerned about it. It doesn't create too much angst. Inflammation, yeah, a little bit of concern. But people's eyes really get dilated when you start talking about cancer. And so let me talk a little bit about it. First of all, cancer, let me say right in the beginning, is a very natural approach. And I'm going to show that to you in a little bit, in a second. But we have some 80 to 100 trillion cells. And as I started to say in the beginning, there's all these sources of toxins from air, food, water, medications, grooming products, household products, all kinds of things. And if you look at over on the left here, where you have that toxic accumulation, that's where you start having all of these disease processes. So if it's the joints, it's arthritis, all the way through, if it's brain, dementia, Alzheimer's, etc. And a lot of this accumulation of toxins are in the body fat. And if you don't have an effective elimination of those 5 organs of elimination, that's where you start having that buildup. And if you don't efficiently eliminate that buildup, it can lead, and many times lead, to cancerous events. Hold that thought, though, on cancer. From an original medicine standpoint, there are lifestyle factors and dietary factors that deal with it. Now, you see in the top left, I have this positive mindset. A lot of cancer is the reason why a lot of people don't get cured of it. A lot of the problem is because of the fear and anxiety that is caused. And I just want to show one chart that will help you to be relieved of this fear and anxiety that is so rampant anytime you hear the word cancer. And then I'm going to talk about this bottom right-hand corner, original medicine approach to chemo, radiation, surgery, and biopsy. And even if I don't get a chance to finish the rest of the presentation, I'm hoping that just by parking on this particular underlying factor, you can be empowered to no longer fear cancer. First of all, cancer is the most normal thing known to man. I usually ask the question, of the 7 billion people on this planet, how many of them do you think have cancer? I get some very good answers, like 20, 30%. Sometimes get as high as 40%. Sometimes get as low as 15, 20%. All of those are correct, but it's more than that. It's 100%. Everybody in the world has cancer. It's one of the most normal processes known to man. Now, watch what happens. Let me show you the evolution, the life cycle of a cancer cell. If you see all the way back in the left-hand side of the chart, you see this little dot. That's one cancer cell. Now, cancer, if unchecked, if not eliminated, if allowed to go rampant, and you just accumulate these toxins and you don't do the appropriate things, it doubles every 100 days. So the first cancer cell, 100 days later, is 2 cells. If you notice, you see it grows all the way to the right. Now, where you see the next to the last one, that's 1 centimeter. Now that takes about 10 to 11 years to develop. So most people, by the time their cancer is diagnosed, they've already had it some 10, sometimes 20, 30 years. So at least 10 years for most cancers. Most aren't rapid developments. So if you're 50 years old and you're diagnosed with cancer, that process started at least 10 years ago. So everybody has it. And now from a medical standpoint, what do they do? Now it is inappropriate and it's illegal to use powerful remedies like chemo, radiation, and surgery unless you're at a certain threshold. So what do they normally do? When you come in, they say, you know what? Let's watch this. You have this thing here. You see this thing, and they show it to you. This little, and we have to watch. So they have you come back in 3 months. 3 months, you see this big thing on the right. You say, I'm dying. It's double. It's a normal doubling. Just like, so the 100 days, which is about 3 months, it doubled. And then if you come back 3 months later, it doubled again. And so you see this 4 or 5 centimeter mass, and every time you see it, because you're not doing anything, it's growing more and more. So you think you're dying. So there's 2 things that I like to say that happens when you pursue just the allopathic approach. They tend to scare the daylights out of you, and then they create a sense of urgency. They start scheduling you for all these things. You get anxious. They don't tell you to get a second opinion. And if you get a second opinion, my view is if you go to 20 different oncologists, you're getting the same opinion 20 times. It's not 20 different opinions. It's the same paradigm. So this is the point I want to make. What I want to show you is from an original medicine standpoint, there is another approach. So here's cancer, the answer to the cancer chemotherapy from an original medicine standpoint. This is a very powerful juicing formula that eliminates, that suffers, that stifles that cancerous growth. And so first what it does is stops it from progressing. So that doubling 110 days, it stops it, and then it starts receding. Now it took you 10, 11, 12 years. It's not going to disappear in 2 or 3 weeks. Now it's not going to take you 10 to 11 years. You might be happy to know that if you pursue original medicine approaches, the question I would ask you is, how long would it take you to cure over 90% of the cancers out there? And if you stop to think, the analogy is, how long does it take to have a baby? It takes 6 to 9 months. No matter what you do, no matter what medicine you take, no matter what herbs you take, it takes 6 to 9 months. But isn't it nice to know that using original medicine, you can recreate your body in 6 to 9 months? You can completely reverse it. So that 10 to 11, 12, 14-year process with a committed program to the original medicine approach, you can reverse over 90% of the cancers out there. So that's original medicine chemo. What is original medicine radiation? Okay, you all know this, but I'll tell you anyways. It's sunlight. I have people that have skin cancer, and they say they can't be out in sunlight. I tell them to go out in sunlight. Now, if you have a poor diet and lifestyle, and you are out in the sunlight, what the sunlight does, it interacts with all that cholesterol and all those toxins, and it will worsen a skin cancer. But with therapeutic dosages of vitamin D3 and the right diet and lifestyle, it takes that same cholesterol on your skin and it converts it into vitamin D. So when you pursue a comprehensive diet and lifestyle original medicine approach, sunlight is your friend. It's not your enemy. So that is the radiation. And sunlight, if you remember those 8 laws of health, that's one of the 8 laws of health. Air, water, sunlight, nutrition, exercise, rest, moderation, trust in divine power. It's one of those laws of health. But those laws of health have to be practiced in an integrated and comprehensive fashion. It's not a multiple choice or fill in the blanks with one of them. It's all 8 of them. And when you exercise that, sun is your friend. You don't get burned. You don't turn red, because there are these other mitigating circumstances when you have an integrated and comprehensive approach. So there is a surgery. So I'm going to pause for a second and ask you to kind of think about it. It is the most painful and yet the most powerful surgery known to man for preventing and reversing all cancers. I'm going to stop and pause. I just want to see a raise of hands. Raise your hand. Anybody know what that painful surgery is? You don't have to put it in the chat yet. I'll tell you when you can put it. Okay, so I see one hand. Okay, all right. And you see any other hands out there, Seth? You're the only one that knows what this painful surgery is? Anybody else?
I would just hazard a guess, but I'll try.
Okay, all right, okay. Well, anybody who have it in there, don't spit it out yet. Okay, as a matter of fact, anybody, you can turn off your sound and tell me what you think that most powerful, painful, it is a painful surgery. I can tell you, I had this surgery.
Is it colonoscopy?
No, that's not original medicine. Colonoscopy is still, I'm talking about an original medicine surgery.
Cutting out meat.
Can't hear you too well, Roz, yeah?
Sorry.
Okay, I'm going to tell you. Okay, put it in the chat. Tell me, Seth, if you see anybody putting it in.
We have fasting. Fasting we have is one.
Okay, fasting. Okay. That could be painful. Okay, somebody's on the right track. Let me tell you what this very painful and powerful surgery is. It cuts deep. And are you ready? You might want to shut off your screen. You might not want people to see the terror in your face when I show this. But what you have to do is cut out the poor dietary habits, meat, dairy, processed foods, GMO foods. Cut out the poor, that hurts. The poor lifestyle habits. Cut out anger, fear, judgmentalism. Cut out all behavior contrary to God's moral and natural laws of health. It's painful. I can tell you, I've gone through this surgery. It hurt. But the more you practice it, the easier it gets. Just like when you start a running regime or any kind of exercise regime, it's painful when you start, but then you get addicted to it, and then you can't function without it. Now, there is a powerful biopsy too. They want to cut out the tumor, and they want to look at it and analyze it. Now, there is an original medicine biopsy, and let me share that with you. And then I'm going to go more quickly through the rest of these, because I think you're starting to get a feel for the power of the original medicine underlying causes and for all diseases and how original medicine addresses them. Well, let me tell you what the original medicine biopsy is. What you want to do is, instead of analyzing the tumor, you want to biopsy the diet and lifestyle and analyze them along with other environmental factors that cause and contribute to systemic damage leading to cancerous conditions. That's it. It's powerful. That's the original medicine approach. So next is toxicity. Allopathic is, again, antibiotics, drugs, surgery, chelation. Now there is an original medicine chelation, cleansing diet, fast, and again we talked about all this accumulation and an herbal chelation. This is a nice little remedy. As a matter of fact, it's actually tasty for a heavy metal detox. And when I put my clients on it, a lot of them call me after they got rid of all the heavy metals and say, you know what, that tastes still good. Can I still have it? And what I say is, if I tell you to eat an apple to help your digestive problem, will you come back to me 6 weeks later, 6 months later, after you fix your gastrointestinal problems? Say, it's food. You can eat this all the time. It will prevent and or get rid of it. Or this last, at the end, the coriander seed powder is the poor man's heavy metal detox. For about $10, you can get a whole bag of it, and all you need is a teaspoon for 6 weeks, and it'll pull out all of the heavy metals in your body. And the heavy metals are important because remember we talked about that toxic accumulation. It impacts the nerves and the myelin sheath, and it can affect the thyroid, get into the joints, etc. So you want to get rid of those heavy metals. And then we talked about the parasite elimination before, but in the spirit of toxicity again. And the nice thing about original medicine, it applies to many different things. It's not single focus. If you go from an allopathic standpoint, drugs are very specific to symptoms and to certain disease processes and symptoms. From an original medicine standpoint, it's multifaceted. It goes across many different signs and symptoms because it's diet and lifestyle. And whatever you do to help one part of the body is enhancing other parts of the body. So it's not a focus on signs and symptoms, it's a focus on laws. Remember? Natural laws. Now, trauma. Now, if you notice over here, the allopathic approach is surgery, post-surgery, drugs, and rehabilitation. And you notice over here in the bottom, I have this underlined, and I want to make the point. When it comes to trauma, there is no powerful system in the world than Western medicine. And I tell my clients, if you get shot, if you get hit by a Mack truck, if you have severe bleeding, do not call me up. Do not come to my office asking for any herbs or asking for any original medicine. You go to a hospital quick. Don't mess up my carpet and don't waste your time. There is no better technology in the world for trauma. So now, that's the good news. The good news, if you ever notice, they call it the practice of medicine. They don't call it the law of medicine. Just like, remember we talked about, they don't call it the germ law, they call it the germ theory. And you can see we exploded that theory. Now they call it the practice of medicine. And I always scratch my head. I said, well, I wonder why that is. Let me share this with you. Maybe they call it the practice of medicine because they have to practice on the 95% of the people that don't need it. So for the 5% that do need what they have, they're ready. They're ready for prime time. But for 95% of the things that people go to doctors for, original medicine has the answer for it. And for trauma, though, original medicine plays a complementary role in terms of proper healing and a supportive role, not the primary role. And there's all these things. This is original medicine morphine. That you can help the pain with a lot of different various herbs out there that are many times, not all the time, many times are just as powerful and effective as the morphine and a lot of the drugs. It's amazing. And I know you're going to have Walter on again talking about exercise. Have him talk about wild lettuce, for example, which is one of the things that I have here near the bottom. And you see it next to CBD oil and hydrotherapy. But he got, his truck backed up and ran over him one time. And he used wild lettuce to take care of the pain. So have him talk to you about that. He's a very able original medicine proponent. Sixth one is psychiatric. And again, from an allopathic standpoint, drugs, surgery in rare instances. Back in the old days, they did lobotomies, but they found that didn't work too well. So they don't do that too often. But original medicine also has, a lot of the mental issues, the emotional issues, and the people who know RBTI are a leg up on everybody else in the naturopathy field, because a lot of times it's low sugars, low salts, and things of that nature, and which RBTI exposes. Without RBTI, you won't know this, but a lot of, but when you combine, as Seth said earlier, original medicine and RBTI, over 90% of the psychiatric problems go away. They're physiological imbalances in chemistries that can be fixed very easily if you understand what that person's chemistry is and make the appropriate adjustments. But there is an original medicine, Prozac, Wellbutrin, Zoloft, whatever you want to call it. And these are some of the examples. You might have heard of holy basil, St. John's wort, kava, even the B vitamin sometimes, 5-HTP, SAM-E, lithium orotate, these are over the counter. Sunlight, remember we talked, so sunlight, radiation is chemo, radiation, it helps with cancer, it helps with emotional well-being. You've probably heard of SAD, which is seasonal affective disorder. That's people that don't see enough sunlight and get enough sunlight. So all of these things, these are natural approaches. And then we already talked about heavy metal detox. So you're starting to see this theme. So the point I'm trying to make is you don't have to know a whole lot. you learn a few, get a handful of things in your little first aid kit, and you're a very powerful original medicine practitioner. And then genetic is number 7. And then from an allopathic standpoint, it's interesting. What they're trying to do now is make or replace the missing gene or protein. So they're doing all this analysis, and it's talking about which chromosome is missing. And then they want to tailor a pharmacological approach to the therapy to one's genotype. But from an original medicine standpoint, optimize the diet, life. Now you want to acknowledge these genetic predispositions, but if you know you have these genetic predispositions, you just might not be able to take liberties that others that don't have the genetic predisposition. So understand what they are, and then optimize that original medicine diet and lifestyle approach. But what about trying to change your heredity? Let me just park on this again for a quick minute. Then I'm going to go through the last few very quickly, because as I promised, I wanted to take about 35 to 40 minutes and then see if you had any questions. So let's have a word on heredity, because everybody's talking, especially when you talk about cancer, it's hereditary. My aunt had it, my sister had it, my this had it, the grand. You know, a lot of times when you ask people, though, you say, "What about your grand?" Oh no, she lived to be 102 or 89. So when did this genetics start? You know, and if heredity was all of that powerful, we should be extinct as a species, because we've been around thousands of years, and so all this heredity must have accumulated. So now, you know, we should just be falling apart and passing out in the street. So let's have a little word on heredity. Heredity is affected by lifestyle changes. They've had twin studies, and when the twins are separated, one do original medicine or diet and lifestyle, the other one drinking, smoking, etc. And one of the twin studies that I want to focus on, it was twins. And then and at the age of 60, they showed the two twins. One was 3 inches taller than the other and had this soft look skin, and the other one had lines and wrinkles. They were twins. They had the same heredity. They just had different diet and lifestyles. Dietary habits and eating patterns are deeply ingrained. The human body is designed to repair and improve itself if you put it in the right environment. Individual responsibility is required for optimal health, and heredity is reversible. If it wasn't, I should be dead now. My grandparents on my mom's side, they both died in their 50s. That's one of the things that scared the daylights out of me when I was in my 30s with heart palpitations and being told I have a heart murmur and all that. And at the age of 55, because I changed my diet and lifestyle, and they asked what pre-existing conditions you have, I said I have a heart murmur. It was gone. It disappeared. I didn't change my grandparents. I changed my diet and lifestyle. Lifestyle is the major hereditary factor. We have those traditions. We like the same stuff that grandma made and the same approaches and all of that. And so personal responsibility can overcome these genetic predispositions. So we are unique with personal capacities and requirements. And again, let me give a commercial for RBTI. RBTI helps you to identify that better than any other system I know. And then you tailor original medicine to meet your specific requirements and capacities, so that you have an integrated and comprehensive approach for your individual situation. So most diseases are the results of breaking the laws of health by ourselves, but it's not always ourselves. It's sometimes our parents or others. But again, you see the quote I have here: genetics loads the gun, but diet and lifestyle pulls the trigger. So guns can't hurt anybody. You take a gun, if you don't have any bullets, and they're talking about gun control, I said, forget about the gun control. Just don't sell any bullets. They need bullet control. If you don't make any bullets, you're not going to have these mass murders. Yeah, you might be able to club people, but you're not going to be able to club a whole lot at one time. So they're focusing on the wrong thing. Anyway, as we kind of summarize, because I anticipated, usually this is a 2-hour presentation, but I'm going to do this as I promised in 35 to 40 minutes. these are the 7 categories that we talked about. And hopefully you have an appreciation. And those of you that are in the school, that's what you're going to learn in detail how to address these. But let's look at the last 3 now. The last 3 are these funny sounding terms: iatrogenic, nosocomial, and idiopathic. And I just want to summarize this in the spirit of time. Iatrogenic it means, if you look it up, it's anything relating to illness caused by medical examinations or treatment. These are medically induced, and there are over 2 million severe adverse reactions from properly prescribed drugs. That's not me saying it. Google it. Dr. Google will tell you. Professor Google will give you the answer to this one. Professor Google will also tell you that over 100,000 deaths per year. I think it was 118,000 last year. It's always over 100,000 from properly prescribed drugs and properly executed procedures. Now, how many people, you might ask, die of original medicine herbs a year? There is an answer for that too. The answer is 5 to 10. Not 5 to 10,000, 5 to 10. And it's from improperly using certain herbs, none of which was on the list that I showed you earlier. Now, nosocomial means a disease originating in a hospital. The reason why I'm not spending a whole lot of time on this is because if you're practicing original medicine, you're not doing 8 and 9. So do original medicine. You don't need to even worry about those because you're not going to be in a hospital unless you get shot or get run over by a Mack truck or something like that. And then it's worth the risk. Otherwise, it's not worth the risk. And then idiosyncratic is my favorite one. And it's a nice sounding word. And it's funny when my clients like to give me their reports and they're reading this, and this is a tumor of so much mass and so many centimeters of an idiosyncratic nature. I always ask my client, you know what that means? And he said, no. I said, is it good? You know what it means? I don't have a clue. It means unknown cause. It means I don't know. You have this thing, I have no clue, but I'm going to give you something to fix it. Now, from an original medicine standpoint, my favorite author outside the Bible says disease never comes without a cause. The way is prepared and disease invited. Just like germs, they have to be invited. If you're an inhospitable host, they have to find another host that's more hospitable. So it's divided by disregard of the laws of health. Many suffer in consequence of this transgression of their parents. Yes, that's true. And it's not that they are evil or mean-spirited. They might not know. But while they are not responsible for what their parents have done, it is nevertheless their duty to ascertain what are and what are not violations of the law of health. So just because your parents and your grandparents, etc., provide you this genetic profile, that doesn't free us from taking the responsibility of understanding what laws were broken, unbreak those laws, and then avoid those wrong habits of their parents by correct living and place themselves in better conditions. So, one of my favorite Bible quotes, if thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God and do what is right in his sight, and give ear to his commandments, and keep some of his statutes. Oh, wait a minute. Keep all his statutes. I will put none of these diseases upon thee, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. The rest of it says that I put upon the Egyptians. And when they opened up the tombs of the Egyptians, a lot of them had cancers and all the same kind of diseases that we have right now when they looked in those tombs. So in summary, the naturopathic approach, we talked about this, it's nutrition, herbs, now the mind, all the way down to the bottom, mental, emotional, spiritual health, and then the allopathic approach. Now you see these question marks. They have these diagnostics, but the supplementation got to kind of question. And then this whole thing of, I love this bottom one, it's not showing up on the screen. I hope you can you read that? Anybody can read that bottom one? What does the bottom one say?
On the left or right hand side? Dr. Jim.
On the right side.
Evidence-based supplementation.
Okay, you can't read it. Okay, I was hoping you can see it because it's blocked out on my evidence-based. But if you look at the evidence clearly shows that original medicine is head and shoulders. All epidemiological studies, when they studied large groups of people doing original medicine versus allopathic medicine, all of them show the superiority in diet, lifestyle. Have you heard of the blue zone out there in California where you are, Vic? There's one where they live up to 80, 90, 100 years old, perfect health and vitality. And they have to find something else to die of besides cardiovascular, diabetes, and cancer, etc. They don't die of these things. My favorite ones are the Hunzes. And when they first discovered the Hunzes, they saw these people that they thought were 40, 50 years old running through the streets and doing all kinds of things. They were 80, 90 years old. So they had this terrific health and vitality. So everybody knows I like hierarchy. There's a hierarchy of nutrients. There's a hierarchy of healing. So the reason I put this is because, there is a context, I believe, for allopathic medicine, but I want to put it in the hierarchy, where it fits in the hierarchy. So from a hierarchy of healing standpoint, the first thing you want to do is, if you have an issue, avoid all harmful and dietary lifestyle practices contributing that we know that contributes to that. Secondly, use natural, harmless, and simple remedies freely. You don't even have to pay for air, and water is fairly inexpensive. So air, water, sunlight, those natural laws of health. They're very simple remedies. They're time honored. They're very powerful, and they will help to prevent and reverse all diseases. Then third, use less harmful remedies, the selected herbs judiciously. Those herbs that I showed, you don't want to use those all the time. You don't want to use parasite herbs all the time and anti-inflammatory herbs. These are very, very powerful herbs. Some of them are so powerful that you can have side effects if you overdo it. But that is a part of the original medicine protocol. And that only rarely in this hierarchy of healing, when all else has failed, then you turn to the strong drugs. It's the last resort, not the first resort. And then my fifth is my favorite, prayer. Thanking God for all his blessings and seeking his wisdom and guidance in all things. Do no harm. That's it. And so I like to ask people at the end of this, as I'm winding down, so naturopathy versus allopathy, which is the most powerful system known to man? And now I'm coming to the part where I'm going to ask you, what is that most powerful practice? Okay, remember I promised? This is where you can start putting your answers in the chat. So naturopathy versus allopathy, which is the most powerful system known to man? Okay, this is what my view is. This credit is given to herbs or drugs or devices or men or the modalities and institutions rather than the true source of all healing. They're not the naturopath nor the allopath, but the Godopath, where all true health and healing takes place. That's the path you want to be on, not any other path. It's not a name, it's the principle. And what I talked to you about was principles. Original medicine doesn't belong to anybody. It belongs to the creator of the universe. Yeah, and that's, again, my favorite author. She says, there are many ways of practicing the healing arts. But there's only one that heaven approves. And we know this. So any of you who are part of our school, the school, know that these are required courses. Okay? So you will become original medicine experts. You will become trained killers. You become 9th degree black belts in original medicine. So this is the Godopathic Protocol. So God's plan, all diseases result of violating those laws. And then I said, what are those two most powerful vitamins? And so what is the practice that if you do all the time, now you can put it in the chat. The practice, the more you do it, the more capable you'll be of adding 15 to 30 productive years to your life. And the more you practice it, the better you get at it. It's an exercise. It's a little painful in the beginning. What is that exercise? What is that practice? Anybody want to blurt it out? You unmute yourself. What did you say? I see you, Marie. Jean, Jean Marie, did I see you blurt out something? Okay. Anybody want to blurt it out? What is that practice? At 15 to 30 productive years. I kind of gave you a hint.
Prayer.
That's close. That's close.
Breathing. Is it?
That's good.
Is it-
Somebody said breathing. Well, let me ask you another way. What was I talking about this whole time? I was talking about the practice of medicine. How about the practice of original medicine? That's the practice. You want to practice original medicine. Not one aspect of it. Prayer is good. You can do all the praying you want, though, and if you don't breathe, if you don't do good nutrition, you're still going to be a sick puppy. So it's the practice of original medicine. What I want you to understand is this is not a single bullet thing. It's an integrated, right? It's an integrated and comprehensive application of the laws of health. It's the practice of original medicine, the 8 laws of health. That's a powerful practice, and they'll add 15 to 30 productive years of your life. I know it's kind of a hint. So what are those 2 vitamins then? And Jean Marie kind of blurted it out in a way. She figured it out. The 2 most powerful supplements known to man in the practice of original medicine are vitamins B and O. The Bible and obedience to what it says. It has everything in there. All the laws of health, the moral and the natural laws. So those are the 2 most powerful supplements. And if you don't, and you can skip all the others, you use this as your foundation, and you will have outrageous health and vitality and in 15 to 30 productive years to your life. So if there's any questions and answers, I'll take them now. If you want, you know how to access us. And for those of you that might have to leave, I just want to wish you health, happiness, and God's richest blessings as you continue to pursue outrageous health and vitality with the practice of, I can't hear you. Nobody knows?
Medicine.
Oh, okay. Okay. You heard me. Okay. Do we have any time for questions?